let's not waste time. We'll take this slow. We've got miles behind us, but miles to go. So let's just break this down to the simplest truth. You and I as one will always be better than two.
Welcome to Relaxed and Free, a clinically minded, biblically based counseling podcast. I'm your host, Cary, here with my co-host, Doug. And today, we welcome to the show Misty Terrell.
Hi.
Author of Rise, a guide to climbing out of betrayal trauma. Misty holds a bachelor's degree in education and is a certified advocate for women of domestic abuse, a certified natural health practitioner, and is currently finishing up her certification as a mental health coach, like mailed off, right?
I actually finished it yesterday.
That's right. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yes, excited.
She has years of experience as an educator, and Misty has a natural ability for breaking down tough concepts and presents that information in a way that is both clear and accessible, which I agree. Which is one of the reasons I have it on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
I think you're really good at that. In her first published book, Rise, A Guide to Climbing Out of Betrayal Trauma, she tackles all the ins and outs of betrayal trauma, recovery, and does it all from a holistic perspective. She facilitates a betrayal trauma recovery group outside the Kansas City area, and her husband, Jim, also facilitates a group for men recovering from sex addiction. They currently live on a small farm, very cute farm, in rural Missouri with their 2 children. Welcome to the show, Misty Terrell.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I'm
welcome.
super excited.
It was very good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
It felt a little awkward reading so, I don't know, matter of fact about you because you're a good friend.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I want to add all these cool things. Like,
Cool things.
Yeah.
I like that.
yeah,
You can use
I
that
don't
word.
know if you know this, but we don't have not cool people on this show.
That's true. We did talk about that explicitly. Yes.
Yeah.
We only
I
cool
feel
people on the show.
like I've arrived or something.
you
That's
have.
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the big comfy chair. Welcome.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
All of our 4 listeners are
Yeah.
2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that's how many people are.
Well, and what a lot of people probably don't know is you were like our first go-to SOS, we're having a major crisis guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you've really like started this whole process out. So
Well,
Yeah.
it was an honor to walk alongside you. I know you guys were in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I remember those sessions and those meetings very well. And so
that's good because I don't. I think I was so foggy brained. So I'm glad you do.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were in the
So
thick
it'll
of
be
it,
interesting
right?
to hear your perspective of what
yeah.
you observed and all of that. That was actually on my list to ask you as we got along. So
Ooh,
yeah,
cool.
I'm
Look
excited.
forward to answering that.
A little scared too because I
Yeah.
probably was a deer in headlights a little bit.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Doug, I saw that you had a question.
I did. It was just more of a clarification, which is annoying out of the gates. I know.
No, that's really what he does.
I just.
It's all right. You're in
spell
good
check.
company.
Spell
Or
check.
I'm in good company both ways.
This says you have a betrayal trauma recovery group outside of the Kansas City area.
Well, we meet in Pleasant Hill,
Okay.
Missouri. So suburb,
Okay.
Kansas City.
But is that like for the metro? Like it's serving
It's
the
actually
metro?
a national group. We
okay.
have about probably 20 local women currently in it. And then we also have an online group. So the way it's structured is we all meet together. We have a computer set up and we have an online. There's 5 facilitators. I'm just one of the 5.
Oh, cool.
And so we have a Zoom facilitator. And so we all do something collectively together. And then we do breakout sessions.
Oh, okay.
And then the locals, of course, try to get together once a month to hit Tipsy Taco or something fun like that, just to connect outside of recovery and create relationships that way. And then it's been really cool because we found out 2 women were in Texas and they got together. You didn't know they lived really close to each other. So it's really connected women all across the United States.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
and
it's
is it
cool.
the group is it called Rise?
It is called Rise.
Okay.
And
All
there's I think we're currently at about 53 members in
That's
the group.
very cool.
Yeah.
We can put a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
If you're open to taking new members.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It's always open.
So
Okay.
we'll do that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because it
I'm glad
sounded
you
like
did.
it's the way that it read to me
Outside.
originally was like, we'll take anyone but Kansas City area.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's a good clarification.
We're
Yeah.
serving not Kansas City.
Yeah.
Like that's interesting way to phrase that.
So I don't know if Doug is a legitimate scientist. I
Oh.
don't know if he told you that.
No.
And he's very
So is my
intricate
husband.
I buried the
details.
lead. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask more questions. Like what do
Yeah.
you do exactly?
Well, I don't
Doug?
work in the scientific field explicitly anymore.
Okay.
I was a medical technologist, specifically molecular
Oh,
pathology.
okay.
Yeah.
Smart.
And worked in hospitals, worked at the Mayo Clinic for a while, a
Very
few
cool.
years, and then came back and I did global clinical trials. So I
Cool.
managed operations. We had 9 labs around the world.
That's amazing.
And then I went to work for Cerner, now
Mm-hmm.
Oracle. And that's where I'm at as my
Currently.
day job. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, my husband's a hydrologist, so
Okay.
total science guy.
Yeah.
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 So I can get your brain and the way it works a little bit.
Yeah.
If you want to get excited about weather, talk to Jim Terrell.
Yeah.
Like I was never
Yeah.
like super interested in it, but when Jim and I would have conversations,
He lights up.
he does, and he just
Yeah.
loves it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I
I'm
always
like,
say
I
our
never-
daughter's name is Charlie, so I always say Life BC before Charlie. We
That's
storm
good.
chased all the time together.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was like what we
really?
did for fun on a Friday night. You know, where's the storm?
Yeah.
Let's go to Oklahoma. Okay.
Oh, that's
We would
cool.
take our dog, would be in the back seat. We would just, it was great. And
Yeah.
he also played professional baseball. So we've done a lot of traveling and stuff. So
I remember standing in our backyard in Harrisonville
yeah.
when we owned that beautiful that Victorian
Mm-hmm.
home,
Yeah.
and looking up at the clouds, and I was like, "Oh, look, some clouds rolling." And he's like, "Well, that's actually blah, blah, blah.
That's all you had to say.
Cumulonimbus wispy, thing."
goodness,
And
yes.
I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Well, tell me about it." And he did.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel I always felt so incredibly safe storm chasing with him
Yeah.
because he was, what was the movie Twister?
Yeah.
You know, the
Yes.
dirt. Okay, the dirt's blowing a certain way. We need to be over there. Like he just has
Yeah.
good instincts.
So
with storms.
he was like that. Oh, who was that? There was that guy in Twister where they're chasing. He's like, she's gonna turn.
Yeah. That voice. There was the Doug voice.
Yeah, there it
but
is.
yes, he really it was fun to storm chase.
Okay.
We don't get to do that very often anymore, but
Maybe
Every now and then.
in the future.
maybe.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
Sam wants to go. My son wants to go now. He's like,
All
"Dang,
right.
man, all his friends want to go because
Really?
they're now
Cool.
middle school. So they're like,
Yeah,
let's go
that's-
storm
Yeah.
chasing.
Yeah.
But we haven't had any big storms lately, so
Yeah. It's been kind of
it's been
hot
kind
and
of
dry here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this episode will actually drop in the fall, so it won't be as hot and dry anymore. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. Doug's like, you probably shouldn't have said that. No, I'm reading his.
We don't want to talk
face.
about current events.
Oh,
No.
sorry. Wait,
I'm just
like the weather?
Yeah, like the weather. That's a current event. It's scorching hot.
Well, with that being said, let's go into your story, Misty.
Sure.
I want to hear what the Lord's done in your life, and you can
Okay.
start really
Yeah.
wherever you want
From
to.
the beginning.
I mean,
Well, I'll start
the
from. I won't start
beginning.
from my beginning because
Okay.
that goes way back. But
Yeah.
in 2017, my husband disclosed to me that he had an extramarital affair, as well as I would say probably a 27-ish year pornography addiction that I knew nothing about. I mean, all those years. And we've known each other since we were 6 years old. So to say I was blindsided by that disclosure is like, that doesn't accurately describe what happened when he told me. But
it was traumatic.
it really was, and I'll get into that. But what the events that led up to it is really, really cool now that I'm almost 6 years out, because God truly recklessly pursued my husband. And I would say just as recklessly as he pursued Saul, who became Paul, and had a Damascus Road moment, my husband experienced something very supernatural which that's our story is unique in that way because a lot of men coming out of sex addiction, it's not so dramatic.
Right, yeah.
It's like years of trying to beat it and to get sober. And Jim did not have that experience. And so we recognize that it looks a lot of different ways. And so, but for him, he was just feeling an intense amount of guilt. I mean, shame and guilt and the heaviness of that. And it was Easter weekend, Good Friday, and he was using one of those big push brooms in our garage, just getting the garage ready for the summer and after a harsh winter. And in the midst of dirt and cockroaches and dead recluse spiders, God grabbed a hold of him. And I love to hear him tell his story because it's just so beautiful. But basically, he didn't even have the strength to stay standing. He dropped to the floor, and in that nastiness, he surrendered his life. But he says that, all these years growing up in fundamentalist Baptist church that, we never missed, he sang a million times, my chains are gone, my eyes are open, I was blind, but now I see. But he said, like, he literally, there was no other description other than that's what he felt like. He actually describes it as he felt like a demonic presence left his body. Like he felt immediately lighter. But what's really, really cool is for the first time, he not only saw the effects of his choices towards himself, but he said he could clearly see how it affected me and my kids and our kids.
He was literally blind.
Literally blind, and then literally saw.
Yeah.
And that he knew, I have to tell Misty everything. Like the light
So he had not told you anything.
This was Good
point.
Friday of 2017.
Okay.
So the light flooded into every dark place of his soul. And he knew if he only told me partial, he thought, initially, I'll just tell her some of it,
which is so common with
so
betrayal.
Common, yeah.
Because they don't want to hurt.
Yes.
A lot of people get that confused, right? Because
Yes.
they think like, oh, you're just evil that you're not telling me these things. When most often the case is they don't want to hurt their spouse more than they already have.
Well, it depends on the person because we've as working with people, we know true abusers. But Jim does not have the heart of an abuser.
Yeah.
Has he abused me? Yes, because he lied. He was deceitful. He manipulated. He gaslit to protect his addiction. But at the end of the day, he doesn't have the heart of an abuser. We work with people who do.
Yeah.
And I work with women
They
who
are
are
out there.
married to men who do.
Yeah.
But that's not Jim's story. So anyway, so Jim knew he had to tell me everything. And so he did. The following day, this would be Saturday before Easter, right? So Easter weekend. So he told me a lot, not everything because I had a lot of questions. He told me what I needed to know to at least get free. And like, I need to tell you that, I've had an affair, that I've been addicted to pornography since I was first exposure was, I think, around 12 or 13. And he said, it took a 30-second exposure to have an almost 30-year addiction. Like the investment that Satan had in just a snippet of an image hooked him. And, he had to go back to himself at that age and explore, why was I so vulnerable to, he had to do a lot of work in that. But anyway, so once he told me, he was not met with a very forgiving, oh, I'm so glad you told me, honey. It was immediate trauma.
Like one of the things I want to say, just for our listeners, one of the things I love about you the most is your passion.
Oh, yes.
And you are a tenacious individual.
I am type A. If you're an Enneagram person, I'm a 7.
Yeah.
And I wing 8. So
Okay.
I am free spirit, and I can be very aggressive, like when I want to be.
And
But
then
I
paint the picture of Jim, just so
Jim
that
is an
everyone
Enne-
can kind of see this scene
my word.
happening.
Well, Jim is an Enneagram 1, so logical, analytical. He's a total introvert. Like when he takes the test, he's almost 100% introvert. Like he's not in the middle. He's not like, he's like 100%.
Right.
And I am complete opposite. I really am a true extrovert. I process outwardly. But if you study the Enneagrams, what I do think is pretty cool is that ones, when they're healthy, adapt 7s. And when 7s are healthy, they adapt 1s. So when we're healthy, we can complement each other.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that
But
true?
That's true.
Oh.
Doug's saying
are-
that because
7.
he's a 7 and his wife's a 1.
And Lindsay's a 1.
Oh.
But when I work, I'm a 1.
Okay, so see, there you
Because
go.
I turn type A, but only when I'm doing,
Yeah.
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 But I hadn't heard the, what did you call it? They
Adapt.
They adapt me to me?
They
Or no,
take
we
on the
switch?
best qualities
Yeah.
of the opposite.
Yeah.
I haven't
So
seen
we're-
that
It's just
part.
Enneagram language. Yeah.
Lindsay's
Yeah.
if she's listening to this, she's very upset because I'm sure she's told me this 1,000 times.
She
Like,
probably
we're perfect for
has.
each other. Even the numbers tell us.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I'm a 1 wing 9, and
Oh,
I'm
I
married
can
to
totally
a
see
9 wing 1.
Oh, wow.
So we're pretty boring.
Well, you're
You're so peacemaking.
We are very
I love
peacemaking.
I love
Yeah.
9s. 9s are like some of my best friends are 9s. I gravitate to 9s. I think I need their calming energy around
Yes, I know I do. Yeah.
my yeah. So I love being around 9s.
In her book, Rise, A Guide to Climbing Out of Betrayal Trauma, Misty Terrell details how she and hundreds of other women are climbing their way out of betrayal trauma and into a life of joy and purpose, regardless of the outcome of their marriage. Viewing sexual betrayal through the lens of trauma, Misty exposes the myths of sexual addiction held by many churches and mainstream circles. In terms that are easy to understand, she unravels the many complex layers that sex addiction and betrayal encompasses and offers hope for those who feel abandoned and rejected. Rise, A Guide to Climbing Out of Betrayal Trauma is now available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle. You can also visit the website risetoheal.com for more info. So this is the picture happening.
Yes.
Jim has just
disclosed
to you.
everything. And we
Yeah.
call that D-Day. In betrayal trauma, we call that moment D-Day. So it can stand for discovery or disclosure. In my experience, it was disclosure. He disclosed. And so there was an instant state of reactivity. I mean, I physically hit him more than once.
Yep.
I'm sure some cuss words were flying. I don't really remember all of it because it was crazy.
Yeah.
Told the kids I was going to go buy some milk and drove straight to the affair partner's barn. She was in the barn. And I was crazy, y'all. I was crazy, capital C crazy. And so
So you didn't go buy milk.
I did not go buy
Okay.
milk.
All
I
right.
did go to
I'm
a barn.
catching up there. I'm like,
So yeah. I did go
Okay.
to a barn, but not to
Gotcha.
get milk. I went to her house, and where
house,
we live
yeah.
very rural, so our community is country. And I mean, as she smoked a cigarette, I was literally at her feet on the floor of a barn, like pulling at her jeans, begging to know the truth. I was just like I'm not one to shy away. I was like, I want all the information. And I mean, I was just like a pit bull to a bone or something. I was just
you needed as much information as you could get.
that's just how my brain works. Yeah.
So, yeah,
And
a
I
lot
didn't
of
trust
people,
him.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if what you're telling me is really true. And so anyway, that was just the beginning. Now 6 years out, I told you we call that D-Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now after 6 years of lots of recovery, I like to call it my day of awakening. It's just so much more, feels more real for me, is just because Jim experienced the light and his eyes opened, but so did mine. I just didn't know it yet.
Yeah.
And so then we would go to church the next day, right? That night, can I just say, was absolutely horrendous. I mean, neither of us slept. I sat on our living room floor. He would try to just like reach out to me, and I was like, don't you dare touch me, with probably some F-bombs in between those words.
Right.
Yeah.
But yet if he left the room, I would beg for him. Like, don't leave me. Don't leave me. It was just ugly, just raw. And the really main thing I remember is literally all night long rocking in place and him weeping in a chair next to me, and me like, the self-harm. Like, I self-harmed. I pulled my hair. I remember Easter morning seeing like indentions on my arm from me squeezing my arm so hard. I ripped a shirt from pulling at it, and I would reach out to Jim and say, I trusted you. Like, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to us? I've trusted you. I've known you since we were kids. Like, just like in a state of shock and trauma.
Yeah.
Full-blown shock and trauma. And just trying to like process what this meant, and not able to really even think about tomorrow. It was just, let me just sit in this grief and feel all of it. And so then, of course, part of my tenacity, it was like, we are still going to go to church. I'm not going to let this get the best of me.
Right.
Sevens.
Get up and get the children.
I will
Get
own
dressed.
this.
And sevens don't like to feel the painful bad feelings. We're we're like the Labrador Retriever. I mean, we're like happy and fun and free spirited. So like, I didn't want to stay in that place. And so I was like just bound and determined, if I had to force happiness, it's Easter, we're going to go to church. So we did. And I remember I did not know yet that Jim had this supernatural experience. All I knew was about his addiction and his affair. That's all I knew. He had not shared that yet. And we're standing in church, and the music's playing, and everyone's like, woo, and I'm dying inside.
Sure.
But I felt Jim, my introvert, analytical, logical husband, who never even claps when he hears a good song. He raised his hands in worship, and I knew. You did not have to. I was like, oh my word, he has surrendered his life to Jesus. I just knew. Like, you didn't have to say a single word to me. But had
he not been a Christian before, or
no? He had been acting and religious and had, but no, there was never ever a moment where he kind of had a story, but he's like, I was never a Christian. I never made a profession of faith or anything like that. So
part of that, just for Jim's story too, was the way that you guys grew up, right? In a fundamentalist setting, where it was almost this expectation that and pressure that if you didn't, there would be hell to pay.
Well, there's some of that, but I would say even more so, as long as you looked the part and conformed, no one asked questions.
Right.
They didn't even ask. They didn't dig into the heart and see. So he had the perfect haircut above the ears, of course, and, the right clothes, and he did what he was supposed to do, and he performed.
And so it wasn't
that's legalism.
Out of fear. Yeah, it wasn't out of fear of punishment. It was out of fear of acceptance then?
I would say that would be his experience,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But probably some fear of punishment too. I mean, that's all there. Legalism is all about, a fear. So anyway, what was interesting for me is I had this realization, which most wives would be thrilled that their husbands became a believer, but I was madder than heck.
Yeah.
Because
In Alabama, we say madder than a hornet.
yes, I was madder than a hornet. I love that.
I haven't heard that before.
That was hilarious.
Yeah. It shouldn't be that funny. I know. Sorry.
Well, so I was standing there and I'm like, you are experiencing this freedom. I could just see it. I could feel it radiating off of him. This was his first Easter. Like he was experiencing resurrection. But I was standing there saying, you have nailed me to your cross and I am now wearing your chains that you've been wearing. They've all been put on me. So I feel like I was stuck on Good Friday while he got to experience, oh, I'm a Christian. And I was so mad. I was so mad. And so that took some time to work out and a process for him to learn how to come alongside me as I processed and grieved. And I learned, all about the addiction and got all those answers or those questions answered. And we began the long process of recovery. So, which kind of leads us into how long does it take to recover from betrayal trauma. So,
which you talk about in your book.
Yeah. And the average is 3 to 5 years for sex addicts and for betrayal trauma. It's pretty much the same, 3 to 5 years. And I remember the first time I had read that in something, I honestly didn't know if I would stay. I was just like, I don't know. There might be too much damage done. And I believe that is okay. I mean, we can talk about that later because that goes into divorce and what you're. But we are of the belief that sometimes there's just too much damage done, and we are pro safety before we are pro institution. We are pro people before we are pro institution, and so
which is that relationship over religion.
Yes,
relationship over legalism.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm that too.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a 7 thing.
It might be. But from pretty early on, I never made any false promises. I didn't tell myself I'm going to, fight for this marriage. Jim didn't say that. I think early on, we were literally on a fight to save our own individual selves in all of this. And I think looking back and now knowing what I know about sex addiction and betrayal trauma, that is the key to recovery, is getting rid of trying to fight for the marriage, save the marriage. No, I think you healing from your trauma. When that trauma hit me, it wasn't just dealing with the trauma of Jim, my husband. It surfaced any unresolved trauma from when I was born. I mean, it just all came to the surface. I felt like I was just like this human vomit, emotional vomit, just like I don't even know what's happening inside of me. And I just knew, all of a sudden, I hated every man I saw, and it didn't matter. I hated them. And so I had to, where did that come from? And
I felt that in our session. No,
I was going to say, you probably know of anybody, because I'm pretty sure I told you, I hate you.
There were times.
Which goes back to, you saw me in that state. You were, so Dr. Corley was our SOS call. So I think I saw you. It hadn't even been a week. I think it was 5 days. Yeah. I think it was 5 days. I was like, I need to see you now. And I don't remember if we came as a couple or I don't remember that.
I don't remember either.
I don't either, because we did both. We saw him individually. We saw him together. I mean, there was for about 6 months, which was the whole time with you.
Yeah.
There was 3 times a week of counseling. So I would come see you, Jim would come see you, and then we'd come see you every Friday.
Yeah.
I just was like, I would live for those moments, because it was, and we really don't recommend marriage counseling until safety has been established for other couples. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I just want to make sure couples, if they're listening, they don't rush to marriage counseling.
Right. Yeah.
We believe it's her recovery, his recovery. And then once safety has been clearly established, you can join together and do some marriage joint sessions. But we didn't know that yet.
What do you mean by safety? Physical
That's a good
safety?
clarity.
Both,
or
all of the
emotional?
above, like
Okay.
emotional safety, because there's been so much deceit.
Right.
I mean, years and years and years of deceit, gaslighting, manipulation, blame shifting. That and if the man isn't truly repentant, like my husband was, there can become more trauma in joint sessions, because what the counselor doesn't know is they'll leave those sessions and he'll just bash her. He'll just
Like
take
lay in.
everything that she just was vulnerable and exposed, and he'll weaponize it.
Retaliation.
Like they want her to hurt even more. And so that's why we're real careful to make sure it's done strategically.
Right.
So, and you're talking about characterologically violent
Yes.
type individuals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or narcissism, and we can get into that. But just men that have the heart of an abuser.
Yeah.
And but
So this actually is because we're transitioning into more what's in the book and you know what we're going to answer the question in terms of how this plays out in the church and everything like that.
yes, I'm so excited for that
let's
part.
take a break
Okay.
and we will come right back.
Sounds good.
At Lakewood Family Therapy, we aim to be your refuge in the storm. We're professional Christian counselors whose sole purpose is to bring healing to your family and hope for the future. If you'd like a free 15-minute phone consultation with one of our professional counselors, you can call or text 816-663-9751 or head on over to our website, lwfamilytherapy.com. We'd love to hear from you. Lakewood Family Therapy, where faith, family, and future is our number one priority.
Thank you for listening. Join us next week for part 2 of this interview. Relaxed and Free is a presentation of Lakewood Family Therapy. Catch up on other episodes wherever you get your podcasts, and please rate and review. Every review honestly helps us bring you this content. Production and engineering led by Doug Bonebrake. Recording done by Chris Renfro. Stay relaxed and free.
Let's not waste time, we'll take this slow. We've got miles behind us, but miles to go. So let's just break this down to the simplest truth. You and I as one will always be better than two. Yeah, you and I as one will always be better than